Welcome to Missed Opportunities for Good, the podcast where we open up the space to have conversations about trends and campaigns at the intersection of marketing, advertising, and impact.
Hi, I'm Alana Ficalora.
Hey, I'm Steph Belsky.
We're social impact strategists, colleagues, and friends who are on a mission to revolutionize the industry we love.
Today, there's a lot of virtue signaling, greenwashing, cause washing, or companies saying nothing out of fear of getting it wrong.
Whether it's a moment or a movement, it still has to be real. It has to be authentic and aligned with the brand, not just performative. It's about the action being taken that goes along with the messaging.
So, we're here to highlight who's doing it well, what could be better, and how companies can stop leaving money and the potential for real social change on the table.
Our guest today on Creative Conversations is Hope Freedman. Hope, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Alana. Hello, Steph. It's wonderful to be here.
To start, we'd love to know why you do what you do without actually saying what you do.
I love the way you phrase that, too. Yeah. I consider myself to be a passionate purpose practitioner. Don't we all love alliteration? And I would say, given my name is Hope, I think of my name kind of to stand for representing my passion of harnessing an organization's purpose for excellence.
Ooh.
I'm a consumer and brand purpose marketer who guides organizations to discover and strengthen and activate their brand's social and sustainability initiatives. So there will be an increase in consumer loyalty, business growth, and positive societal impact. So I really specialize in marketing, advertising, communications that harness the power of good. And my area of expertise range from strategy and strategic planning to execution. I know we'll probably get into this, but my experience kind of comes from advertising, brand management, and purpose marketing. So I've actually really lived in the world of consumer packaged goods throughout most of my career.
Amazing. Well, now let's share your actual bio. Hope Freedman helps organizations discover, strengthen, and activate their social and sustainability initiatives that positively impact business, consumers, stakeholders, and communities. Love that. Having worked on iconic brands at Fortune 500 companies, as well as premier advertising and communications agencies, Hope brings big brand management and strategic planning know-how to organizations to help them build brands through purpose-driven and social responsibility initiatives that increase consumer loyalty, achieve business growth, and deepen employee engagement. Big promises, and I know you deliver on them all. She also brings value to nonprofits by enhancing their appeal to potential partners for delivery of their missions. Yay! Well, thank you so much for being here, Hope. We are excited to get to know you a little bit better.
Thank you so much.
I know you kind of alluded to this a little bit before, but what first drew you to working in the impact space?
Yeah, I was first drawn to impact way back when, I think when I was in high school and whatnot, whether it was community projects or being an aide. I remember volunteering for a local cerebral palsy facility, which was pretty impactful
Amazing.
for me. Yeah. And then they call it like probably disability or disabled facility now, but I feel like impact work is really kind of in my blood. On my professional journey, I pivoted from being an account manager at large ad agencies in New York after getting my MBA, and then I started to work for some Fortune 500 CPG companies in brand management. And after several years at CPG companies, I joined Unilever, which I was thrilled about, being the gold standard that it is in brand marketing. And there I managed the North America Country Crock and Imperial Margarine businesses. And it was interesting about yellow fats, but that's for another time. And there I saw beloved brands like Ben & Jerry and Dove, among others, implement these mission-driven marketing initiatives. And they weren't always perfectly, tied to sales, but they certainly helped accomplish other brand and business goals. And at the time, Dove Self-Esteem Project, I think it was called the Dove Self-Esteem Fund back then, was totally burgeoning. Everybody loved that work, inside the company, outside the company. It was talked about consistently. And here I saw that Dove, basically a soap, quote unquote, because they don't consider themselves a soap. I think they call it a cleansing bar. was really breaking new ground as a brand that stood for women and self-esteem by dispelling cultural beauty standards. And this really resonated with me. And I saw that brands can be social agents of change. People go over the long term, obviously, but if you stick with it, the brands can have the power to change consumer perception and societal standards along the way. And so I took some of this thinking back to my margarine businesses. Long story short, and my business partners in Canada and the US made quote unquote cause a part of Country Crock and Imperial's marketing activities. In the US, there was a on-pack support sponsorship of the Wounded Warrior Project. And in Canada, there was also on-pack promotion, but also some kind of other pieces with Breakfast for Learning, a nonprofit up in Canada that was helping kids, kind of eat breakfast to kind of for their development. So I really saw that there was so much more potential that brands could unlock by integrating cause, purpose, whatever you want to call it these days, as part of its brand equity and strategies. After leaving Unilever, I pivoted into the broad world of cause marketing, brand purpose, social impact, etc. Again, whatever name you want to call it these days. There's so many names. So that's been my trajectory, which makes sense to me now. Didn't always at the time, makes sense to me now.
Totally. It never always makes sense at the time, right? Hindsight's 2020.
For sure.
But there was always that
Yeah.
drive to kind of pursue something to do
Yeah.
good.
Of
Sure.
course.
Yeah.
So, on that note, what issue area are you personally most passionate about?
Well, can I say more than one?
Oh, yeah. I'm terrible at just picking one all the time. So, Steph knows.
Decision making. Because a few issues deeply resonate
Yeah.
with me. It's a great question, I think, because sometimes I have to look back and kind of say, kind of what's our story? I was a big sister through an affiliate of Big Brothers Big Sisters for 4 years. Many years ago. Many years. I had this girl from when she was 9 to 14 and saw firsthand how mentoring can make a difference in a young person's life,
Yeah.
especially, if that person's kind of not in
Yeah.
whatever their life circumstance are. So I would definitely say youth development. And then when I was at Reckitt, Reckitt Bank Hughes or whatever it was called at the time, brand management, and I worked on the Woolite fabric wash business. And I won't go through all the details, but basically we were trying to be kind of much more fashion forward and image oriented as a fine fabric wash, hoo-hoo. And so we're not all tides. And my team and I developed a sponsorship for Dress for Success, the
Nice.
nonprofit. And so that was so inspiring.
Love that.
And I love that
Yeah.
organization. And so I would say workforce development. I'm involved in some local face groups here, and I hear all these people who are looking for clothes, getting back to the workforce, disadvantaged, whatever that is. And I just want to help those people kind of get back on their feet.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to give back to students, colleges and universities. So I became an adjunct faculty at different local institutions for many years now. So I'd have to say education too. It's all part of that mentorship piece as well.
For sure.
I think they're all kind of combined.
Developing young minds.
I love it.
Exactly.
Our future.
Exactly.
Oh.
And then,
No,
yes.
keep going.
Sorry, too many. Recently, I've become very interested in food waste reductions and solutions to help address those. Recently wrapped up a 3-year engagement leading a cross-sector coalition with industry, health-related nonprofits, academics, and government liaisons. And this coalition promotes portion consumption of food and beverages, so responsible consumption, not only to reduce obesity, but also food waste, which has become such a hot sustainability topic. That's something that I'm also been very interested in.
Incredible.
I'd say that's,
Well, maybe, and not to feed this to you, all puns intended, but I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I want to hear more about this coalition. Is that an impactful project you've worked on recently that you would be willing to share a little bit more about?
Yeah, I have other projects too that I'm proud of. It's an amazing organization. It's relatively young. It's about in its 6th year. It's housed at Georgetown Business School under the Business for Impact umbrella.
Nice.
And the coalition was all about providing resources and tools, including research, to help food and beverage industry members, collaborators, to really promote internally and of course externally then through communications, portion balance. We didn't call it portion control because that has a negative connotation, but portion management feels much more, and there's been some work done on it by my colleagues about how we need to think about what we consume. Because really, when you think about it, I mean, if you go to talk to dietitians, they'll tell you don't need a lot of food. They have a whole consumer campaign where you use the hand as your always with you guide, right, tool.
Weight Watchers alum here. So
Yes, so you get this, right? And I think who can only live on
2
this?
points.
But
Well, we've just been
right,
fed these oversized meals in America for so
Exactly.
long, right? You go to any other
Exactly.
country and they're not feeding nearly as much food. It's very much an
right,
American thing to be like, have 400 pounds of food for this meal.
Right.
yes,
Oh, yeah, and if you
Ridiculous.
need a to go
yes.
box, but really, you should just eat it all here.
Certainly, at least in this country, we have been socialized to have this completion compulsion, right? We have to finish
Yeah.
off our plates, right? You go to a restaurant, and over the last, I think it was 30 years, the portion size have increased
Yeah.
tremendously.
Mhm.
We also have this value perception. We want to get the best bang for our buck, right?
Mhm.
So the more food, the better. People, you could take leftovers home. You could, do all kinds of things, right? You could share it. There's a bunch of stuff. And so in this consumer facing campaign, we talk about that. Very family friendly, family oriented, really easy, not looking down at people. The tone's very much approachable, kind of like your friend versus your parent. So it's not chastising anyone saying you shouldn't do
Right.
that. It's really about these are really simple
Yeah.
tips.
Yeah.
So that's been really eye opening for me. And then, how it has all these adjacent connections to sustainability and food waste and obviously obesity with the GLP-1s phenomenon that's
Yeah.
happening now.
Yeah.
So it's all been really interesting.
Yeah. And
Wild.
it sounded like you might have had another project that you wanted to speak to. Is there another project that you wanted to share as well?
Well, I'm grateful. I've worked on a few impactful
Mhm.
projects that I'm proud of, including a food brand that developed a social impact platform about nutritional development. And there was also a niche beauty brand that embarked on a mentorship program when I was at Edelman in their business with social purpose practice.
Nice.
But yeah, really cool. Too bad some of them didn't come to fruition.
Oh, isn't that so fun
Bummer when
with
that
strategy?
happens.
Where you're just like,
Yes.
here's my brain, and you can do whatever you want with it. Oh, you're going to do nothing with it? Fantastic. Thank you so much.
The team was pretty disappointed on both
Yeah.
accounts, but things come into play,
Of
budgets,
course.
leadership,
Of course.
whatever.
It's
One,
okay.
yes, right? It's just the nature of the
Yeah.
beast. It's
Totally.
kind of what
Yeah.
happens. Kind of go with the flow. But one project that did launch that really resonated with me, which was the Edelman Business with Social Purpose team, was actually helping develop the Vaseline Healing Project. And yes, Vaseline is a Unilever
Mhm.
brand, but I'm just saying this because I was on the other side of
Sure.
this.
Yeah.
People don't know it. The Vaseline Healing Project is an aid effort in partnership with the nonprofit Direct Relief to provide dermatological care, say that five
Right.
times fast, Vaseline petroleum jelly, and medical supplies to help heal people's skin that are affected by poverty or that maybe they're in a war torn
Yeah.
area or disaster in the world. And so fascinating to be in the kind of beginning stages of that and what it took to develop this
Yeah.
program. The background is that the jars of petroleum jelly, from a business standpoint, was at risk of becoming a commodity in the U.S. And the Unilever team obviously needed to grow the business and needed to find ways to make this more relevant. And petroleum jelly, at its core, its brand attributes are really about healing. And we did some work on that and what it means to heal and with that versus protecting things like that. And obviously wanted to get more consumers into the
Right.
franchise. So the team, I wasn't part of all of this, but the team also began the process of developing a social purpose strategy for the brand. And there was interviews done with like the CDC, Doctors Without Borders, refugee agencies and things like that. And so the team learned that Vaseline jelly, petroleum jelly, was an indispensable part of the emergency
Mm.
first aid kits. If you can imagine, in refugee camps, people, it's heartbreaking. They're walking around without
Yeah.
shoes, right? So, these common skin conditions like cracking and blistering, not to be gross, but they can be
Of
dangerous and even
course.
maybe life
Yeah.
threatening. So, really was truly a very simple first line of care. And so, with this insight, the Unilever and Edelman team, we crystallized a social purpose strategy around skincare for the most vulnerable people that are living in poverty and emergency conditions. So we were part of the vetting process. We helped deciding which partner pursue, and long about has been written about this. This was a healing project was launched in
Mm.
2015. What I love about this as a former brand manager is that it's really leverages the brand's core attributes and makes it
Yeah.
relevant. And here's something that can actually ignite a
Mhm.
business. So it's definitely connecting business goals and societal
Mhm.
needs really
Right.
amazing. And it helps differentiate the brand.
For sure. And
Absolutely.
and like you said, bring in a new younger demographic, a new audience that is going to really resonate with those brand values. It's all really good stuff. Is that campaign still happening to this day?
I believe it's happening in different iteration. I think
Yeah.
they've kind of run into skin equity, if I remember
Nice.
correctly.
Smart.
I also wanted to make the point that, as we all know, you have to invest in
Yes.
these
Totally.
things. You can't just have this platform out there. I mean, obviously, Unilever can have, Vaseline a big brand, but we big 360. The TVs with Viola Davis, and okay, you don't need a celebrity like that, but there was lots of impressions and placements, and the consumers could build a kit and donate a kit, all kinds of things. So there's a lot of ways to kind of activate it
Love it.
with some investment, and I think that's an important piece because yes,
100%.
can't do everything, but you got to do a good amount to reach the people you want to reach to make a difference.
100%.
Preaching to the choir.
We love hearing this though, because more people are missing out on this and need to realize that you have to do the work. You can't just be performative about it.
Yes, and thank you for mentioning that too, because I really feel like when we were in the midst of it, I mean, for me personally, at least, I was like, wow, this is different than brand management. Yes, you have to understand the brand and you pull back the layers of what the brand stands for. And that's not so easy. We all have kind of our own thinking and whatever, but to get a consensus, but also which social issue territory should we go down, right? And then kind of marketing, a lot of it is about words and what it means. And, I tell this to my students all the time. We do a mind map, like the extras where you just put things, kind of stream of consciousness, but you're like, okay, but that could lead you down a different path and test things or whatever. But you have to do due diligence, and sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes shorter, depending on what the institutional will is. But certainly, you want to do it right, and you want it to feel very much a part of the brand, not just bolted on.
Yeah,
totally agree.
Exactly. It needs to be aligned, which obviously is a core value and part of our rubric. Yes.
Yeah. I love that word, rubric.
Well, you're welcome, Professor. So, Hope, what's the biggest challenge that you're facing right now?
So many of us who are involved in this wide spectrum of social impact work. I mean, climate where federal actions have created a chaotic and volatile environment financially for companies, impact work-wise, and I think about all the churn, let's put it that way, that companies who are in this space or want to pursue their mission driven or social impact initiatives, and all the churn that they're going through because they got to focus on something that's not really relevant or germane to their business. Therefore, these companies and brands are taking a step back from their social impact work, or they're loosening their strong footing, right? So brand purpose isn't necessarily a focus in their brand marketing. I do believe that said, that the pendulum is swinging because we know that so many consumer groups want brands that align with their values. I think about COVID even and the horrible dark days, and not to be depressing, but everyone was about the employees and what they wanted. And I have to believe that employees too are going to want their companies to stand for something and be back out there. I think it may take some time for kind of more of the buzz to become part of the mainstream conversation. But I am optimistic that employees are going to kind of start knocking on leadership doors and saying, hey, you were like that 5 years ago. How come you've either walked away or not talking about it or whatever? And maybe hopefully demanding a little bit more of that, if not kind of full swing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. I mean, it's the real state of the world right now. Yes. Resonates for sure.
And luckily, I will say, as we've discovered in research, obviously there are some companies that are screaming, we're with DEI, we're done with CSR and all that. Sustainability is a bad word, blah, blah, blah. But really, majority of companies are either they're keeping it, but they're just keeping it on the down low. Right?
Yeah, they're not as vocal about it.
Yeah. They're low key doing the work and continuing on as business as usual until they can't. But hopefully that day will never come.
Well, yeah, and the irony of all that too, right, especially on the sustainability side of it, is it's just risk management.
Yeah.
Do you want your company to be around in 20 years, 50 years, 100 years? You should probably think about sustainability, because otherwise you might not have the materials you need to continue as a business, especially as there's trade wars and everything else.
Listen,
just to add, the world is fun.
Yeah.
On a happier note, What would your ideal project or collaboration be? It could be as specific or non-specific as you like.
Ooh, that's such a good question. Wow. Well, I truly believe that brands can be agents of
For sure.
change. And from my scope of my career, working on different brands, leading different consumer packaged goods businesses, I found that consumer behavior to be fascinating. When I think about
Yeah.
it at its kind of core, how certain demographics or groups with similar psychographic or attributes, beliefs, habits, whatever, form an emotional bond with tangible and intangible objects. You go to a store, you pick up this thing, it does, it cleans your clothes, but you have this really emotional connection to them, right? There's a loyalty aspect to it. And so we call these brands. And I think there's so much power in brands. And I would love to collaborate with organizations to unlock the power of their brands through strategies, initiatives, and platforms that have a positive societal impact. And I'm super excited when we can help a brand build social purpose strategies for brand and persuade positive consumer behavior, like food waste reduction or, whatever it might be, right? So my passion really is about crafting sound social impact strategies, then implementing the strong programs or signature programs with appropriate
Yeah.
partners. To that end, I think also this is kind of a B part of that question. Really, it's important to have powerful and persuasive
Mm-hmm.
communication. I'm a believer in strong creative briefs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very tactical about that and saying that because I've seen a lot of these communications throughout the years where it's like, oh yeah, they're out there, one time thing. That's a Super Bowl ad, which I think we could probably get into, or whatever. And you kind of like, it's just not advertising. I think social impact or purpose driven communications are different than a traditional advertising. They need a little bit of a different creative brief. Certainly, there's some foundational building blocks like objectives and business situation and branding elements and assets and core message. What else is there? Like reason to believe. But really, it's all through a social impact lens.
Yeah.
Who's the beneficiary? Who's the partner? And you have to tie that in. It's not always easy. You need to really collaborate with
Yeah.
your partners, whether the nonprofit or other people, to kind of get a really rich thing. But it's a little bit different. I feel like that could land so much better for a brand
Mm-hmm.
than just doing something kind of from a more of an purely advertising mindset.
Totally.
I think it's just shifting a mindset piece.
100%. Yeah, building it into the approach from the beginning, I think, is certainly so important. And I know we've
Yeah.
sidebarred about that before. It's so
Yeah,
important
we
to
have.
incorporate into a meaty brief where people can really understand the scope ahead of time, and it's not just an afterthought being thrown into an existing campaign.
Oh, totally. And also it's giving
Mm-hmm.
diligence. So it's not a perfect science by any
Yeah.
means or art, but you have to think about it in different ways. It's the same fundamentals building blocks, but they have to be looked at from a social impact lens. And not always the people who are writing the briefs know about that. So you kind of need someone who's a little familiar with
Totally.
that and say, hey, have you thought about that? Have you thought about
Yeah.
that? It's mean for the partner and things be handled. Obviously, the creatives, art director, copywriter, they have a different thing, and you have to educate them. But I think once you kind of have that conversation and kind of put that on
Yeah.
paper, or some of those pieces, those aspects of social impact, I think it just becomes a little bit more tighter. It's more foundational, not so like, oh, this is a fun ad, which doesn't really say much about
Yeah.
what you're trying
Right.
to get done. If that's your goal, if that's your goal.
So, Hope, before we get into our campaign, as someone who definitely values mentorship, we would love to know what's one piece of advice that you would give someone, a brand, a agency, aside from, working on your creative brief ahead of time and incorporating all the elements in. What's a piece of advice that you give to them?
Interesting question. Well, I think it's doing a lot of due diligence, internally and
Mm-hmm.
externally. And what comes to my mind, things that I remember hearing from the client side when I was at Edelman. And so I certainly have to know whether the brand is right for that, right? And not every brand
Yep.
is going to be aligned with the social impact. So that's number one. I remember having conversations or being in meetings with the client was like, oh, let's do, recycling. Well, that's not really differentiating for a brand. I mean, unless you do it in a different, very creative way, certainly. But what's kind of those social issue areas that the brand is uniquely qualified to
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
tackle and provide a
Yep.
solution for? That's it. I mean, honestly, there's been brands that you work on and clients very set on certain paths. You're like, okay, let's see if it can work. That doesn't mean it's not doable. It just means it's a little bit more
Yeah.
challenging to kind of get
Right.
there. And kind of, why is your brand the one to do
Yep.
that? What kind of permission does that brand have to go down
Yeah.
that route, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's it. I think also certainly it's consumer feedback, maybe through some consumer
Yes.
research, light touch, whatever. I remember we did this on the food brand I mentioned before that did the nutritional development platform. And we went and talked to consumers. Okay, yes, it's not a perfect science and people kind of tell you what they want. There may be some bias, but that aside, the integrity of the data we felt was pretty strong in that. So does this brand have permission to go into XYZ
Yeah.
spaces? And we kind of did that way. Helps, and then that helps feed into internal, right? So who are the advocates for that? Who can support this? What are their feelings? What are their beliefs? What are they seeing as kind of the path forward for integrating brand purpose
Yeah.
into your brand?
Yes.
You need buy-in. You need
Yes.
buy-in. You
And
need
you
buy-in.
need leadership buy-in.
Yes, exactly,
It
exactly. It's
has
I
to come
mean,
from
putting
the
the
top down.
organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to build from the bottom up. In
Yes.
other words, people come to
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
peers and then go up,
Yep.
right? Kind of build that case
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
that way. Maybe not. Depends on your organization, how big it is, how matrix
Right.
it is, whatever it may be. You have to know the
Yeah.
internal politics. But I think leadership buy-in for
Yeah.
Yeah.
sure. Because who has the
Mm-hmm.
dollars?
Yeah.
That is
Yep.
correct.
100%. It's a great transition to get into our rubric. Authenticity and alignment. Key.
Yes.
And it's tough work, right? We all know this is tough,
Yeah.
tough
Yeah.
work. It is. It can feel
It's not for
pretty,
the faint of heart. Yes.
right, very overwhelming.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump into the campaigns that you brought us today for one brand, which we're very excited. But before we jump into the campaign, we're going to quickly review our criteria, both for our listeners and for you as well, Hope. So the first thing we always look at is alignment,
Next is partnerships,
call to action and transparency,
engagement.
and lastly, optimization and amplification.
So, with that in mind, Hope, can you please tell us about the brand and series of campaigns that you brought us today that is doing it well or not? And give us a quick creative summary of the creative for the primary campaign that you want to share with us today.
Okay, yes, I'll do my best to keep it kind of tight here. So, I mentioned I've been pretty intrigued by the issue of
Yeah.
food waste and
Yeah.
solutions. And so, Unilever has a brand called Hellman's, which you all know it's mayonnaise. And they've had a multi-year campaign around food waste called Make Taste Not Waste. They've been in the Super Bowl for about 4 or 5 years, I think it is. Don't quote me on that one. And, so it's run from 2021 to 2024. And actually, I wrote part of a LinkedIn post about Super Bowl ads in 2023 and 2024. And doing some digging about the history of this campaign for our conversation today, because it's more than I thought. Started off with this one's Food Waste Action TV, and it was actually during COVID, which the ad briefly references up front in a 60-second ad. And it talks about how 40% of all food is wasted, and they give some more statistics and
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And talking about their belief, their kind of point of view on that, and that food is too good to be wasted, something else. So they're trying to raise the issue. And it was a really good ad. I really liked it. This is actually doing some digging is what I found. It was got statistics. They kind of talked about why it's important for consumers. And there was an urgency to it, like act
Yeah.
now. And I thought, oh, that's great. But that was not what I had gotten from their Super Bowl ads, to be honest. They then evolved, I think, in 2021 too, into this turn nothing into something. I'm not sure if it was in the Super Bowl ad or not. But then they did in the Super Bowl actually have Amy Schumer in their spot called Fairy God Mayo.
Yes.
She's talking about, waste things, whatever. So it kind of became a little bit more entertainment more than education. And then the next year, 2022, they had former NFL linebacker Jared Mayo, obviously, with his name, and Pete Davidson. They introduced this thing called Tackle Waste. And, kind of, again, much more entertainment than education. Really didn't talk about, as far as I could tell, what to do with it, why it's important. So that was interesting. And then in 2023, they continued on this path, this kind of packed, overarching sustainability message with a fun plan names of actors John Hamm and Brie Larson, Hamm and Brie, right? And then Pete Davidson also appears. So it's an extension of this Make taste, not waste. But again, at that time, I would have loved to have seen, they leveraged this lighthearted tone if that's the way they wanted to go creatively to show consumers how to easily transform leftovers. They do, but it wasn't why it's important to consumers.
Right.
And none of these celebrity packed ads really gave any kind of call to action. There were some offline things if you looked or you saw on social media. They talked about this fridge night app on their brand website and taking action. So that's good they did that. But it seemed like even in their 2024 Super Bowl ad with Kate McKinnon and Pete Davidson called Mayo Cat, again, lighthearted celebrity pack, a little, a little over top slid, to be honest, but like didn't talk about like
Yeah.
why it's important. So I was a little bit puzzled why they wouldn't take the time or the opportunity to, with this huge audience, a little bit more education. And official assets, they 24, they declare the day after the big game called Sick of Food Waste Day, which I thought was great. It talks about their long-term commitment for the brand to champion investment programs and partnerships to fight food waste, right? That's great. But I still don't understand why that wasn't how a part of their Super Bowl ads when they had such an amazing platform. And in fact, in 2024, I learned that they actually partnered with a nonprofit called Food Recovery
Yeah.
Network, which is a student-led movement for fighting waste across the U.S. So here they had an opportunity to do a little bit more. I mean, yes, lighthearted or whatever if they wanted to. Just felt like while they launched with such a strong focus on food waste, the why important, what they can do, and then as they got more into Super Bowl ads, they kind of introduced the topic, but didn't seem to take a deep dive into this complex issue. Lost a sense of urgency too through their subsequent Super Bowl ads. So that was kind of interesting. So while a lot of the heavy lifting for education came through their websites and obviously other probably digital assets, I think there was a missed opportunity, no pun intended, that they didn't kind of give it more. It was really interesting. I think sickoffoodwaste.com is still active, but the no call to action and TV ads over the course of 3 to 4 years were the largest TV audience, I thought was kind of disappointing. Any thoughts before we get into the evaluation piece?
Yeah. First of all, Hope, thank you for bringing this to us because I'm going to say it. I was pissed at these ads. Okay. Because, yeah, what a missed opportunity. Even just a hashtag of make taste not waste at the end of it, like that's it. That's all you need. And, here Hellman's is talking about, oh, we increased, the discussion before and after the Super Bowl around food waste by 24%. Well, fantastic. Great. You're increasing awareness. Fine. But yeah, what a miss. And they've done pretty good work over this past 4 years that you would think like they could be celebrating that from the rooftops. They could be shouting it and also, fine, you want the humor bent, great. But one of the things that I love, especially about branded content, is that it forces you to be smarter, to be more strategic, to bring in these other pieces that you can't fit into the 30-second spot, right? And something that Alana and I talk about a lot is the opportunity for this kind of supplemental content where you could create the edutainment bent and go a little bit harder on the education component to supplement the 30-second ad that was just all funny, all ridiculous, and make it work a little bit harder.
Yeah, just so I hear you correctly, I mean, the assets seem to have done more of that. Where I don't see the connection for me personally is that they've got this ads for 3 or
Right.
4 years, and you kind of went just lighthearted. There's no call to action, nothing that you would even know to go
Correct.
to their website.
Yeah.
Campaign itself seemed a little bit disconnected.
absolutely.
Where all this, like you said, the great work was happening, it was there. And I think the first ad in 2021, wherever it ran, I couldn't figure that out, was great. It was just like, oh, there's all this is happening. It wasn't depressing. It was a pretty upbeat ad, but it just was like, wow, I don't know why they didn't kind of take that tact further. Not sure. I just thought that that's interesting.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people are going to a mayonnaise webpage on the regular
Right.
Unless
Right. I
like
mean, for
it's
recipes, yeah,
but if you
but
don't
I
even know that
mean,
there's going to be recipes there, why would you, right? To the point of the online assets and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, well, how are their social channels? But it, unless I'm somehow on like the wrong Instagram page, this was okay. First of all, when you search it on Instagram, it doesn't even come up right away. If you go from their website, you get 48,000 followers. But when I was just searching on my phone, like couldn't even get there. Is it really having the impact that it could? It seems like they just went so celeb heavy that the impact and the focus kind of lost its way. And I get that comedy is a great way to break through. And, there's all of those
yes.
elements that you can catch people off guard. But having that longevity of the story and the follow through and like what are they doing the rest of the year to keep this message going and
Yes.
really
Good
continuing to
point.
have
Good
that
point.
conversation? Are they working with are there larger vendors that purchase helmets en masse? Like how can you educate those food institutions
Yeah.
and the food waste that's coming out of those? Like if they then somehow took a responsibility not just for individual consumers having to do this in their fridge, right, which is really just reusing leftovers is their approach. But like if you're not going to be able to reuse it as leftovers, are they telling you how else you can reuse the food and eliminate food waste beyond that?
Yeah.
I know that their product obviously is ways to use mayonnaise, but ultimately the campaign could just as easily be called ways to use your mayonnaise. Like it's just use our product.
Yeah.
So there is a business case
Yeah.
for them to get people to use their recipes
Right.
because it incorporates the mayonnaise. And it's
Yeah.
great that they're even having the conversation because most food brands are not talking about food waste, but how
Yes.
can you expand
Yes.
it
Yes. Yes.
even more, right? Are there schools buying mayonnaise in bulk to put into their products? Okay, so how can you educate students beyond that? Are there big cafeterias at offices that are buying jugs of mayonnaise to incorporate? I mean, I'm not even personally a mayonnaise fan, so I haven't owned mayonnaise. I mean, I've literally never had mayonnaise in my fridge.
I
Maybe when
love
I was a kid, I don't
mayonnaise.
know. But I imagine that there's like big vendors that purchase vats of this at a time
Yeah, of
that you
course.
could then find ways to incorporate it on a much more like low key grassroots sort of level, spreading it across as well. No pun
Puns.
intended.
Puns.
I mean, I
Puns.
think some other thing with that was also, I mean, I don't know if they talked about this in any of the articles I read kind of about the past Super Bowl ads, but I think there was a connection, obviously Super Bowl, but there's a whole point, Alana, about stadiums, right?
Yes.
And I read, I think on their website that it had, Indian taking action on recipes, join the Fridge Night Challenge with a free food waste app. That's great, but again, wouldn't have known that from
Yeah.
the ads.
How are you going to actually inform
Don't know
people?
about
But yeah,
that.
to your point about stadiums too, people are constantly grilling at tailgates. So some people put mayonnaise on burgers and stuff like that. So you could totally have pop-up experiences
Mm-hmm.
at these huge games across the country leading up
For
to the
sure.
Super Bowl
For
and
sure.
other sports as well, I imagine, where people are
Yeah.
tailgating, right?
Yeah. I mean,
And
dips,
in
right? A
real
lot
life,
of dips sort of
exactly.
maybe.
And converting, and then also simultaneously, so you could do the pop, but then also what happens to all that tailgate food at the end if it's been sitting out in the sun all day? Can you also take the rest of that food waste and be responsible for composting it and taking it in someone, off in the
Right.
Yeah.
green bin
Yes.
so that it goes on
Yeah.
to live a life back in the ground? I don't know,
Right.
full circle.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. If Hellman's sponsored composting at tailgates, that would be brilliant. That'd
But
be
it's like
brilliant.
stuff. Remember that campaign we were looking at that had the huge dumpsters? That was one of the dating apps that
Yeah.
had dumpsters for your like
It
the
was
things
Hinge.
that all the crap you had from your ex that you want to get rid of. And so they would put out these dumpsters on college campuses to
So
Funny.
brilliant.
collect all that stuff and then hopefully do something with it and
Yeah.
not
And
just throw it
Alana and
away.
I are
But
like,
we're like
great
missed opportunity.
start.
You could, but theoretically, right? You have this
Yeah.
huge dumpster sponsored by Helmsteds that can collect all that food waste, but also they're showing you how to make that best 7-layer dip or whatever the other spinach dip. I don't know, whatever you put mayonnaise in, dip for your tailgate and how to reuse your other food waste with their product. But all the other stuff you can't use, dump it in here on your way into the stadium so you don't have to worry about it sitting in your car the whole time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good idea. Yeah. Literally a point of entry.
Yeah.
Well, and friends,
Literal point of it. Yeah.
let's
Excellent.
also talk about the fact that over the 4 years that this campaign has went on, Hellman's paid nearly $56 million to get into the
Celebrity
Super
endorsements.
Bowl,
Oh, yeah. That.
Yeah.
not including production costs
Or
and
celebrity
Right.
endorsements.
paying the talent. Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what could they have done with all of that money to help food waste and to help feed people. And, it's so funny, Hope. I was thinking about my own Super Bowl commercial treaties, which I'll share with you. But, some of the best Super Bowl ads happened, or the most impactful Super Bowl ads, I should say, happened because the company didn't advertise during the actual game, right? And they took that funding and they redirected it. One of my favorite examples is Lowe's and their partnership with Rebuilding Together, where they take the funding that they would have used for a Super Bowl campaign and they use it to rebuild houses for folks who live in the communities where the game is being played. Chef's kiss.
It's great. Yeah. Yeah.
They've been doing it for 6 years, maybe I think we figured out it was like 10 years. It's been happening for a
great.
long time, and just so much respect. And sure, a missed opportunity to not talk about that being, that's happening during the Super Bowl, but also super smart that they are using those funds responsibly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just looking at one of the articles that you pulled up, and they talk about how the benefit of reducing food waste is also cost saving, right? But I don't remember any of the spots actually acknowledging that it saves money.
Nope.
Which, especially these days, that message is key for people because everyone's trying to pinch their pennies across the board with the economy the way it is. So you would think that they would lean into that side of the messaging to help support it as well. But then also, I was talking about how the Super Bowl is this second largest food waste day to Thanksgiving. And so I was curious if you happen to know, or if either of you know, if they've had a part 2 of this that also happens around Thanksgiving, because there are also a lot of highly watched events that happen on Thanksgiving.
The Macy's Day Parade. Yeah.
Again,
all the football
exactly.
games.
And like, what an activation in the Macy's parade, right? I don't know if they have a float or not, but again, there's tons of people that flood to New York City for the parade, like not just in having, an inflatable mayonnaise jar. But is there a way to incorporate some sort of an activation in the parade that both hits the people that are in person experiencing it, but that you would also get a taste of it? Again, no pun intended. They just come out so easily with this. I don't even know. Food waste just has so many. But if there's a way to incorporate something like that as part of the parade, would be interesting too. Sorry, that just made me think of that.
No, it's interesting. I just remember that reading another article that said that they did have something about a pregame, a player's tailgate, kind of rescue food from that. I think it was last year they did that. But again, it's not, don't really know about it. Yeah. So it's kind of,
it's great they're doing things, but if you're not telling anybody, then no one's aware.
You had to get people involved.
Right. Yeah. Right. How can you activate audiences if you don't give them a call to action?
Yeah.
Period.
Right. Yeah. Again, there's lots of different business reasons I can imagine. And, obviously they want to flavorful recipes help with their business, all that kind of stuff. I get that. It's a great alignment with the brand for sure. I mean, I think that's their brand essence.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's a condiment, so it makes sense.
Yes. I think their early work was great. And I was surprised it just kind of pivoted to a way to make it more celebrity packed and more routine and over the top versus, I mean, food waste is a serious issue. My book, I read somewhere EPA statistic, I hope to quote me on this. I think it was something like 60% of methane emissions in landfills comes from food
it's a crazy amount. I have the stats somewhere on my computer too. It's pretty absurd. And the thing is that's so messed up about the food waste conversation is like, A, it's causing all these methane emissions. Don't look at what the EPA is talking about now, because weren't they trying to say that no, that's not a thing? But anyhow, that there's so many people across the world that are hungry. I mean, I feel like I grew up in a house where my parents would say, like, you better finish eating that because somewhere in the world there's somebody who's hungry who doesn't have any food on their plate. And so it's like
completion compulsion.
Exactly. And so it's this idea of not only is it bad for the environment to throw it away, but also we have a food shortage, but also there's also tons of food that's not making it from, they're saying that there's the percentage, the focus obviously in the commercials, because it makes sense because it's what's related to their brand. They're focusing on what's in a person's fridge and it's putting the onus on the consumer again, right? But if you look at
Good
all
point.
the food that's growing in the farms before it ever even makes it to the grocery store, or all the food that gets to the grocery store, but then never even makes it to somebody's house or a food bank, because it's bad in the process, there's so many steps of where we could be catching this food waste problem, like restaurants, to this, to that. I mean, there's so many. It really takes all of us, right? To the composting
No,
piece
for
of it
sure.
is still like the latest part of the end of life of where it should end up. There's so many ways to prevent it going forward. And yeah, it's interesting. But the other thing I was going to say, off the seriousness of the food waste topic, too, is I wonder if, like, on the actual jars of mayonnaise, if they had a QR code or anything that would send you to the recipes, at least on the website, or something that would drive you as a call to action there. At least you're already buying it. Are they now
Right.
connecting the dots, or at point of sale or something like that? Because also that seems logical.
That's a really good point. That's a good point. I have a jar of mayonnaise. I think it's too small. to have a QR code, so. I think they did a really great job in the beginning, and I thought again maybe it was COVID, kind of the whole fear of that
Yeah.
stuff. But you're right, even the cost savings, like Tide, right? They've
Mhm.
obviously P&G has put like tons of money behind this. Kudos to Hellman's for being this continuous
Totally.
campaign for 4 or 5 years,
Absolutely.
right? Like, good on them.
100%.
And like Tide is analogous to
Yeah.
that, and they're all about cold water, some serious goals, really kind of aggressive
Yep.
goals. And so it feels like food waste analogous to this cold water piece, I think could be really interesting juxtaposition of different brands doing this kind of their own, how they're kind of activating against and what their messaging is.
Yeah.
Yes, tips and tricks is great. Yeah, the free food app is great. Partnering with the Food Recovery Network is great in terms of call to action transparency. But I think there's opportunity to do a lot more.
Yeah.
And again, why should people care? Like, why should people care?
Totally. Yes. To your point, at least they are doing something, and at least they do have nonprofit partners. That's
and
working
they
in the right
did
direction, right?
they did make $100,000 donation, at least in 2024. I don't know how many other donations they've made, but yeah, that's it. So many missed opportunities.
Yeah, again, great intentions
Yeah,
and some really great
yeah.
work. Beginning. Also kind of curious too, how much the partner was involved for this past year or so, this Food Recovery Network. How do they involve them? I don't know exactly what was done. Yes, there's the students, it's student led, but it'd be great to kind of feel like that was more of a collaboration there and
Yeah.
kind of some synergies going on.
Yeah. Another thing that's interesting and maybe makes their campaign a little not consistent is that they've renamed it, it seems, every year, or rename parts of it that are essentially the same thing. So in their initiatives, it's not like all of this falls under Make Taste Not Waste. They have all these other names that are basically part of the same idea of reducing food waste. And so there's different solutions on each one, instead of making it a more comprehensive campaign that evolves over time and just they redo that site. Instead, they're keeping up these previous sites and making them all separate. Like Sick of Food Waste Day, Make Taste Not Waste,
Yeah.
Between Two Slices, Save Our Sandwiches. So many of these are literally just redos of the Make
Yay.
Taste Not Waste. And then at some point they went into this like Save Our Sandwiches, talking about climate change and heavy
That's
rainfall
interesting.
and droughts and flooding on farms is going to potentially make mayo extinct.
Oh God.
And so they're acknowledging
Well, it's,
Cannot.
it's eggs and
because
it's like eggs and vinegar.
because of the
It's like 3 ingredients.
soybeans in the mayo. But they're talking about like cover cropping and keeping the soil intact. So they're pledging 30 million over the next 5 years to help farmers embrace regenerative agriculture products. I'm really into regenerative agriculture.
Great.
That's really cool. But you're making people pay to buy a plushie? I don't understand.
That's what they're offering as a plushie.
Yeah, and it's currently closed. You could have adopted a sandwich and purchased a plushie, which apparently would go towards this regenerative agriculture. And like, there's no consumer asking that other than making them purchase something. But like, what a funny way to get people into the conversation about regenerative agriculture.
And plushie may land in the landfill.
It's 100% because no one needs another plushie. Anyhow, I just thought that was like a
Speak for
very
yourself,
funny,
Alana.
yeah, fascinating. Sorry.
Well, just coming back to the partnership question, Hope, which I thought was a really good one. I did look at the Food Recovery Network's website quickly, and under their events section, they do have their big game partnerships. And you can actually see that on their, we'll obviously post the link in the show notes, but it says, together we doubled our efforts with 2 Super Bowl tailgates this year, the Players Tailgate, which you were referring to, and Guy Fieri's Flavortown Tailgate. FRN, powered by Hellman's, was on the ground redirecting high-quality surplus food to our hunger-fighting partner, New Orleans Mission, Louisiana's largest provider of continuous emergency shelter services, which serves over 38,000 meals every month. I'm having trouble reading. But the point is that in just that landing page, we are seeing more impact
Mm-hmm.
than
It could have been shared on the other one. Yeah.
anywhere else. And you're not going to get that from a friggin' plushie. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking I remember it was a not to go off the topic too much, but I remember a couple of years ago in Super Bowl it was a Kia,
Very
and
possible.
they talked about, well, there was a whole story about one of the football players who was homeless.
Yes.
Mm.
I remember his journey to
Yeah.
the NFL and the whole
Mhm.
thing, pulled at the heartstrings. But then there was a part of their digital activation, or maybe it was even the commercial, I can't remember exactly. It was about giving to a Homeland Security organization. So that felt very real. That to me felt like a good lockstep. Their food recovery network is not even mentioned on any of their, obviously, again, Super Bowl, because we all see it,
Yeah.
right? Most of us
Right.
see it.
Totally.
Versus going to do the work and digging around and find more stuff. For me personally, all the ads of Pete Davidson or Ham and Brie Larson and Kate McKinnon, I don't really motivate me to go find out more.
No, totally.
So that's kind of where you have to
Yeah.
get your information.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice if there was something kind of attuned to what Kia, whoever else
Yeah.
it was, that talked a little about homelessness and why
Connects the
it's
dots.
important. Obviously, yeah, exactly. Connect the dots. Food recovery didn't really even have a cameo in it.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Totally.
Right.
It's just about their product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a miss.
Amazing.
Again, did some really great work. Not going to bash
Totally.
them. Great work. Really some super work in the beginning. Just think they could have. I was hoping they would
Continue to evolve.
take their money and evolve it and blow it out and kind of tell people why it's important and why they should care and give them
Yes.
easy ways to become engaged in this reduction of food.
That's right.
100%.
That's right. And
yes,
work with Hope Hellman's, because she's
Yeah.
got it.
Yes. There's
That's kind
yes,
of me.
it's
Thank you.
and that's also the point of the podcast, right? We're not trying to bash anyone, and
Yeah.
they're doing something, which is a lot more than a lot of brands can say. So they're finding that alignment. It makes sense. Just push it further. That's all we're saying. And with that, thank you, Hope, so much for joining us today and for sharing this campaign with
Thank
us
you.
and diving in. Where can we send folks to learn more about you and your work?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, so they can find me
Perfect.
there.
We'll link in the show notes for sure.
Love it.
Thank you so much. It's just a lot of fun, and I love all the conversation and the provoking questions. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Of course.
Thank you, Hope, for joining us and for helping us shine a light and learn from those who are doing it well and reducing the missed opportunities for good.
And food waste. We want to hear from you. Let us know. What campaigns are you seeing that are doing it well? Who would you like to see us interview? And what campaign would you like us to audit?
Thank you so much for joining us on our mission to revolutionize the industry that we love.
Missed Opportunities for Good is a production of Aligned for Impact and Love of Good.